The main part is that it's a protocol between the AI application that uses an LLM, and it exposes like basically three main things. It's tools, it's a thing called resources, which is just raw data that you could like ingest into a RAG pipeline or whatever you wanted to do. And there's prompts, and that's the three main things that a server can expose for now.
Yes, MCP really boils down three parts: resources, prompts, and tools. But most folks only touch the tools, overlook the other two parts, resources and prompts, and they are often confused by these two. The thing is, resources and prompts are super powerful. When you combine all the three together, MCP really shines. Today I'm gonna show you how using Cloud Code and TypeScript and a bun-MCP DB server we built in last tutorial. Hey everybody, welcome to MCP Quest. This is Ross. In last tutorial we built a DB-MCP server using Cloud Code and TypeScript, and here is what we did. So in the Postman, when we connect to this MCP DB server, we can see 6 tools, and we can execute these tools, and we can execute queries. So here we can use select star from employees. Let's just limit using 10. So if you execute, you will see the result. This is good, this works. However, just to testing it in the Postman, it's not what we want. We actually want it to work in a large language model, which is MCP client. Today, I'm gonna first show you how to run this MCP server using Cloud Desktop. But before starting it, we need to configure this bun-MCP DB server. What I normally do is that I have an alias in my shell, and the alias is an edit Cloud MCP. So by doing this, every time if I just type edit Cloud MCP, it just pops the setup. So this setup is important because it also includes the environment variable, and we need to use these environment variables in the MCP. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. Let's first start the Cloud Desktop app. Okay, there's an error here. It's not a severe error, but it's annoying. It says .env has some issues, invalid JSON. And there's something that we can do some quick fix. I think the root cause is coming from this main index.ts file. There's a .env.config. So the issue is that if I don't specify the path, then it's gonna issue a warning message directly to the console, which is stdio, which actually confused the MCP server and client their communication. So in the stdio transport method, we should always avoid to use any console.log, this sort of thing. If you use console.log, console.warn, this sort of message is gonna pollute the stdio, which will cause troubles for the MCP server to work. So we should always avoid using this thing. And for now, we can comment it out, shouldn't have any issues. Now let's try again to see whether I can fix the problem. I'm gonna start a Cloud Desktop app again, restart. Good, this time it's working without any problem. This one is already connected to my bun-db-mcp. You can double check from here. You click this button, you see the bun-db-mcp. You expand it, you see the 6 methods. It's 6 tools. Now we can just ask some simple questions to see whether it can fulfill the task. Let's start by asking some simple questions. We know we have employees table, so we see if it can finish this job. And can you show me a pie chart to display the ratio of male versus female employees? This question looks simple, but it still involves multiple steps: connection to the DB, and read the schema, and also execute a query. We can already see Claude Desktop is smart enough to call a chain of two calling from the connection to the read schema and to the query, which is the final two calling to get the job done. This is a standard flow to use our bun-db-mcp server. We have a database. We first do the connect, make sure the database is connected to our application, and then read schema to get table definitions. And then we can execute the actions. It could be any CRUD operations, query, and create, update, delete. And after everything has been done, we disconnect. Right? So here, there's a very clear two coding chain from the connect to read schema to execute and to disconnect. Okay, let's come back to our bun-db-mcp server. In last tutorial, we built the tools. Now we can build prompts using a similar way. Again, we want Claude Code to write the code for us. But before that, you notice I just copied the markdown file to the src specs to this file. What we want to do is we want Claude Code to read this prompt and build this one for the MCP server. So let's start by doing Claude. Yeah, we can use a one-shot prompt asking Claude to do the job for us. Let's select this file first. Like this. The reason why we want to use fs.read file sync is we still want this file to be a standalone markdown file. We don't want this one to be embedded into the TypeScript code. So just keep this one separate, and it's going to be very easy to modify later. So let's just get started.
Mission accomplished.
Okay, I think that's done the job. Let's take a look. So now you notice
Ross, agent needs your input.
in the index.ts, we have two extra handlers. One is the list prompts request schema handler. The other is a get prompt request schema handler. And in this handler, it reads the query employees.markdown file from this path. Let's test it how it works. This empty folder, and we do Claude. It is dangerous, such that it does not confirm every time. Okay. Now if you type slash query, you notice something interesting. So this bun-db-mcp query employees, this is a prompt from the MCP server itself, and then can still pass the instructions, and you can run it as well. There's actually some problem net here. So it's about this. We shouldn't use process.cwd, because if you run in the application, process.cwd will not be the folder of the MCP project. It's gonna be the project of the application. So that's something we need to modify, which is dir name. The dir name is the folder of the current file. This current file is index.ts. So that's in the sibling folder specs query employees. So you should remove src as well. Yeah, so this should work. So I can choose this one, followed by my instructions. Show me the number of female employees. Yeah, you can see it still follows the workflow we defined: step 1, step 2, step 3. Right? First, it called action connect, and verify the action connect works. Select 1.
Mission accomplished.
Okay, mission accomplished. You see, it follows every step of the prompt, and it works. So same thing can work for other applications as long as it's MCP client that supports the prompt. It just works in the same way. So we can test it using Cloud Desktop. We can use a Cloud Desktop app. Open it. Yeah, now we see a button, plus button. You click it. You see a new option, add from bun-db-mcp. So if you click it, you see the query employees. And this is a prompt from MCP server. And it asks for the instructions. Why it has this instruction pop up? It's also defined in the MCP server. So if we come back to see the definitions, it's in the get prompt request handler. You see this parameters, arguments, instructions. Cloud Code is very smart, and because we mentioned in the markdown file, it must take user instructions in natural language. So it automatically builds these instructions as arguments, and you can use it in your MCP client. So we say show the number of male employees who were born in 1960s. Yeah. So that's just like you upload a file, right? But actually it's a MCP prompt. If you click it, you can see the content. Right, that's the content, and you can execute it. Yeah, it looks like most male employees were born in 1960s, about 70,000. Okay, I think now you have a clear understanding of how the MCP prompt works. There is a common mistake which is worth pointing out while you're building a MCP prompt. So here we see the MCP prompt has a definition. This is from here. It has a name, has description, and has arguments. Right? But sometimes you use a special property named title. You just write something like this: the name, the title, and in title, many people put a white space here. Right? So what will happen here? So if you put a white space at here, then Cloud Code will not be able to recognize this prompt. Let's see. So let's come back to the Cloud Code and to this empty folder. And we are going to use MCP at here. We do the Cloud. And now if we type the slash, it has a MCP and followed by the title and there's some space here. And in this case, it's going to ignore the prompt, right? So you can use the same instructions as before and show the number of female employees. It can still run and it can still call MCP tools, but it's not gonna follow your prompt. It does not do any step 1, step 2. It's not doing a connect. It just directly gives you the answers. Right? It completely ignores your MCP prompt.
Mission accomplished.
So to avoid this, if you have to use title, you better just use something like this. Do not use white space. Okay, that's just common mistake people often make. Okay, so now we understand how the MCP prompt works. You can actually create many prompts as you think they are reusable. So one thing here, we only have a very simple prompt to query employees. And in this prompt, we don't look at other tables. But in reality, we often need to check multiple tables. You need to use a join in your select queries. So to do this and to do some complex queries, we need to have a global understanding of the entire database, not just one table. So we can build something reusable, but first of all, we need to give the prompt some context. To do this, I'm using the MySQL workbench. So in this workbench, you can see in employees, this DB, we have 6 tables. And these tables have relationship to each other. Okay, and we can do some reverse engineering. We go to the database and reverse engineer. We have the database connection here. That's where we use employees table, employees DB. Okay, and now we have the charts, 6 tables and 2 views. We don't need the views with, but now we only need tables. You can remove this one. So you see, so in our employees DB, employee actually is joined to every table, directly or indirectly. So what we can do is to take a snapshot of this graph and then come back to our Claude code, and we can say create a markdown spec to describe this database structure and draw a, then just paste the image in this folder.
Mission accomplished.
Okay, let's see. So it has a very clear description of every table in the employees database. It tells you the columns and data types and indexes, and also with mermaid chart. So we can take a look at the mermaid. Yes, very nice. Basically, it just builds everything. So once we have this schema, and it's gonna be very easy to build more prompts for reusability. Now let's see, we want another spec. How about just to insert a new employee with more detailed information? For example, the salary and department. We can ask Claude Code to write a new spec, and then based on that spec, create a new prompt. Okay, so this is our command. We need to ask Claude Code to build this insert employee -info.md for us. Let's just give it a go.
Mission accomplished.
Okay, it's quite interesting. You see, I only ask Claude Code to create a spec,
Boss
insert
agent needs your
employee.
input.
Okay, I don't need to enter any input. We only ask Claude Code to create a spec, insert employee, but Claude Code automatically figure out I'm gonna create a prompt. It just created a prompt for me. Now we have two prompts, insert employee, and let's see what's in this markdown file. Yeah, first describe the table structure and just step by step. Yeah, you see the list all the column of each table, and still follow the workflow step by step. It also provides a lot of examples. Okay, so let's take a look whether it works or not. And this time we're gonna use Claude Desktop to do some testing. Now we have two prompts to use. I do the insert employee. I say just create a new employee. Cruise will be is salary. It is $2 million. That should be more than that. Department is production. Okay, let's give it a go. Step 1, connect and verify database connection. Step 2, generate employee number. Okay, use the max count +1. Check department exists. Insert employee record. Yeah, it has already inserted. Now verifying the insertion. Well, everything is done. See here, perfect. We can create as many prompts as we want. Okay, I just created more prompts. Apart from the query employees and insert employee, I also create something like delete employee and also manage departments. So everything is just here. Yeah, you can see there are 4 prompts here. Okay, so the actual content of all the prompts in this markdown file. If you take a closer look at these markdown files, you will notice a large portion of it is not commands. They are just some context, like table schemas. So this one exists in the delete employee, but also inside the insert employee. And also for the manage, there's also some table structures and also some general steps like connectivity and determine operations. So all this sort of thing, they are not commands. They are just an helpful knowledge for AI to follow your instructions. So which we say is just something called context. Contexts are not commands. They are helpful knowledge helping AI to execute your commands, but they are not commands themselves. So because there are so many things in common, it might be very tedious just to repeat these things in every prompt. So is there a way to reuse it? So this is something we care, right? The good news is that yes, we can. We can reuse it by extracting this sort of common context knowledge from the prompts and to separate them into a new concept which is called resource. MCP resource, that's the third pillar of the MCP. Now I'm going to tell you how to do this. To do this, Same as before, we need to have a general markdown file which has all the details. I think nothing is better than this database schema.md we just created before, which has everything about the knowledge of this database. It has table structures, it has column definitions, it also has a very good looking McCP chart. So you can see it just has everything. So if we put this one into the MCP service resource, then this one can be reused by every question we ask. So let's just do it. And we still start from Claude Code, and we ask Claude Code to generate a resource for us in this MCP TypeScript. So we can say something like this: create a MCP resource. So MCP resource, you need to have a address. The address just like a URL. So we can use something like this. First is the MCP server name, bun-db-mcp : and then the resource name, we say it's a general database. Yeah, you can use something like this from the markdown file. So we use the database schema. Yeah, file is also context. Here as before, please use fs.read file sync to reading its content. Okay, let's just give it a go.
Mission accomplished.
Okay, you see, it just created two handlers. One is the list resource request schema handler, the other is the read resource request schema handler. So this pattern is the same for tools, for prompts, and also for resources. So you can see it is from here. Let's search resource. Yeah, so that's the address of the resource we just created. That's the name of the resource, and that's the content the resource gonna return. Good. Okay, now let's just test it. Same as before, we first tested using Claude desktop app. We started, and then we click this plus button, and in the add from bun-db-mcp, you notice something. Apart from the 4 prompts, you also see a new file-like icon, the database schema. This is the context. If we click this one, you'll see it just looks like a file. It's just like you use some file uploading or copy paste image. So they just work in a similar way, whether it's a file, whether it's you copy paste some images, or you use MCP resources, they all work as context. So with this context, you no longer need any prompt. You just ask your question you want to ask. So you can say, show me the average salary of each department's employees. That should be enough. You don't need any other prompts. This one should work, let's say. You can click this button and let's give it a go. Okay, the result comes out very quick. Yeah, you see the efficiency is also very high this time. It only does a connection, action connect, and the query, nothing else. You didn't see it just read schemas. So how does it know the knowledge of database? Everything just from this file. Good. Now let's test in Claude Code. Claude Code is also a MCP client that you can use. Claude Code has a convention. At is used for context, like files, MCP resources, and slash is used for commands or workflow, like /command, and also the prompts. Okay, now let's test the same thing in Claude Code. So in Claude Code, you can use slash. The slash is just for prompts. You see we have 4 prompts. But for the resources, you need to use @ symbol. If you use the @ symbol, you see something new. Well, it's a bun-db-mcp with a general database. That's the address of the MCP resource. Now you can ask the same question and show me the average salary of department. Yeah, that's enough. You don't need any extra information.
Mission accomplished.
Okay, job is done. Let's wrap up today's tutorial by looking at an interesting table about example clients on Anthropic web page. So here it lists all the popular MCP clients. You see everyone supports tools, but only a few support resources and prompts, unfortunately. So there's something I really like. It's just like Cursor. You see Cursor only supports tools as well. So if you use you can't see any MCP resources. But over time, I think most people are going to understand the importance of resources and prompts as well. Okay. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the long video. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thank you very much and see you next time.